Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here, and I'm back with another misadventure with Fate Samurai Remnant. Now, you guys have watched my review of the whole main game, as well as my mini review of its recent free update, and I gave both of them some great praise. However, you would also know that Fate Samurai Remnant would also be getting free DLC expansions throughout the span of 2024, with the first one being released for February 8th, 2024, and it's being dubbed as the Fragment Keian Command Championship. Dear God, that's such a mouthful. And this one centers around on Boss, who once again is totally not Gilgamesh. And he's hosting a special tournament to all the 7 masters and servant teams to compete in hopes to gain a prize that's said to be even greater than the waxing moon itself. Not only that, but it will also offer a brand new servant to play as even 2 new bonus characters, and with it relatively being priced around $14. So with that, is this DLC good? Well, that's what I'm here to find out. But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing here, then by all means, like the video, click that subscribe button if you're new, and hit that bell notification icon if you want more content regarding this game truly. Not only that, but I'm also planning to prepare for my 750 subscriber special, which is a special review for Persona 5 Royal, as that is considered to be one of the best modern JRPGs of all time. And hopefully by the end of this year, I'll be able to do such a review on that. So please do look forward to that. With that said, and the formalities are now out of the way, ready your sword, hunt for a giant gold statue, and prepare for battle as we head straight into Fate Samurai Remnant Keian Command Championship. So our story begins with, of course, as mentioned in the intro, with Boss, who once again is totally not Gilgamesh. And he decides to host a tournament for the 7 masters to partake in, with the prize being said to be greater than the waxing moon itself, and where, basically, no one actually dies.
Everybody lives!
With everyone partaking in it except for, say, Caster's team, because, well, you know, they suck, everyone has their hopes to obtain this prize for their own benefits. Though later down the line, they find the true revelation of why this contest was formed in the first place. And that is the story. And for what it is, it's alright, it's fine really, as there's not a whole lot of stakes, shocking plot beats, or even anything that's on par with the base game's general story, as this one is sort of a more tongue-in-cheek experience and one to not take itself very seriously. Even the twist itself, while warranted, is nothing too crazy, and the structure basically boils down of being essentially a small-paced tournament arc going through the same pattern over and over again, as it takes around, let's say, an hour to beat per route, and there's 7 routes in total, a lot of which unfortunately has repeated dialogue, mainly through Boss and a newly introduced character. And these routes sort of take place after chapter 2 of the base game, but then later diverge in, well, essential AU territory. And it's consisting of the characters' motivations being basically the same as the base game, though they have different endings based on the circumstances of this route. But what kind of makes up for this alright story is generally the character dynamics and the directions, being great as they always were in the base game. I mean, hey, more antics with Musashi is a big plus for me. And there's even some amazing character moments, particularly in both Archer's and Lance's route, as well as some servants' reactions and connections to the brand new character being Ibuki Doji here, a giant snake god woman, a rogue ruler, and essentially a big child. She's tons of fun, being sort of like, say, a prankster to everyone else, and even has some nice connections to certain servants here, as well as even make some nice lore here. And as someone who's never played Fate Go, and essentially the route you get to play as, with being casters, chaos and hijinks ensues in that route. Boss himself is still great. And well, yeah, if you were expecting this story to be on par with the base game, you're definitely gonna be disappointed, as this is more of an enjoyable, fun romp that's not to be taken seriously. Almost like, say, Carnival Phantasm or Fatal Grand Carnival kind of tale. Except you know. When it comes to the gameplay, the combat is pretty much the same as it was within the base game for the playable characters. Though based on the route you choose, there are some neat additions, as this tournament really comprises of is a little bit of exploration, as well as the remaining few being just a couple of boss fights and mobs, with involving this audience gauge here, which will grant you money to buy items by performing certain actions during the bosses, like affinity techniques, doing riposts, shell bursting, and noble phantasms. For what it is, it's fine and warranted for anyone that's playing anyone else that's not Iori and Saber. And obviously, one of its biggest selling points of this DLC was finally being able to play as Ryder, who wasn't even being playable in the main game for some reason. Though sadly, no Tamamo Aria Gaming. F in the chat for Tamamo fans. But then again, we can see why you can't fight as her anyway.
6.5 hours later.
And for essentially playing as one of the tougher bosses in the game, she's definitely fun and can really lay the smack down with her moves. Another few additions includes a new dual strike move for Iori and Saber to have, which looks pretty cool, as well as for Berserker's route, where you actually have the option to switch between Musashi and Rogue Berserker mid-battle and without any time limit, opposed to, say, the Rogue Servants being having a limited time gauge when you switch between them, which honestly is pretty much nice, and it's something I wouldn't mind seeing in, like, say, a future DLC, or heck, maybe even a follow-up game to this potentially. Though other playable additions came mainly from obviously playing as the new servant Ibuki Doji, who is definitely really fun to play as, and she's also very big, which does make her a very big target to get downstorm. And essentially because she's a rogue servant, you get to unlock her to play in the main game itself, and you only had to do it just by being cast as routes. And the last one, essentially, is being able to play as boss himself, once you do a certain requirement after completing each route. And yeah, he's really busted, and while he does have only just one infinity technique, it's pretty much his iconic one, so that's really enough. When it comes to bosses, the only ones we have really that are new is just Ibuki, who's just a solid fight, and these two new enemy types. The one is just a reskin with a few new moves. Though these bosses aren't essentially crazy hard unless you're playing with someone else and in the harder difficulties, though there are some team battles against the rival servants, which few of them are slightly unique, as you only fought like 2 of them in the base game, so seeing what the other pairs are like and how they function was a nice treat, I guess. Even if it can get chaotic at times, especially when you're fighting against Berserker's team, which is just 2 servant bosses at once, opposed to saying a master and servant. But other than that, yeah, the new additions were fairly solid and decent, though they don't change too much from the game itself as you probably would have hoped, especially when you had to fight some of the same bosses over and over again, especially depending on the route you take, with Caster's one being sort of one that spices things up a bit, even if it's just combat after combat after combat, which, for what it is a fine time. Lastly, to touch upon is how much are you actually getting for $14? Well, it's actually a solid amount. Now as stated, there are 7 routes for each of the servants, and they can spend up to an hour each. 2 of them involve playing as 2 new playable characters, as well as even containing a secret boss, should you place boss statues on each pedestal in every route, as well as also containing a brand new subsection of battle recollections, involving fights against, well, the other teams and Ibuki, as well as also having to play as Ibuki, Rider and boss within those recollections, and also having to add 2 as your accompanying allies in the base game. For what it is, it's fairly solid. The one thing I really have to stress and warn about is that you should not play all the routes in one go, as doing so, it's borderline repetitive, nearly much as on the levels of Sonic Heroes type of repetitive in that aspect. Though thankfully in this DLC there's no part where you get to have, blow out torches but just using your invisible tornado thing. Thank God. My recommendation really is just to play one route as a digression casually when you're playing the base game, especially if you're doing, like, say, a New Game Plus playthrough. And essentially, just like that, whenever you do feel like you want to take a break from the main story, you can just play this DLC again. So, with that, is this DLC good? Well, if you're not too centered of having, an emphasis of, say, a compelling narrative, and if you really loved playing this game, especially with its gameplay and characters, and you want to do something more within the game, like, say, adding new playable characters and such, then yes. And I think Fate fans are going to have some fun with it, regardless. For essentially $14, you couldn't do anything worse than that. Though I wouldn't say it's an amazing DLC, but it's not a bad one either. It's fairly good for what it is. Though I truly hope that the second one that's launching around, like, say, April 18th at the time of writing this review is a lot more interesting. Overall, I'm giving Fate Remnant Keian Command Championship whatnot 3 Ibuki Dochis out of 5. Anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching, hope you enjoyed this review, and let me know in the comments if you played this DLC, and tell me what your favorite thing about this is. With that, Mad Kaiser, out.